At this time, I'd like to call to order the Capital Improvement Board for August. Did you push the recorder?
I started it.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Capital Improvement Board for Tuesday, August 29th.
Mr. Blessed? Oh,
Here.
Ms. Shipley?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Ms. Stoffer?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Okay. First item on the agenda is audience participation. We have none. Second is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting, 9/13/2022. For those who were here on 9/13/2022, one of you please make a motion that you would accept the minutes as submitted, or,
Motion to accept.
I second.
okay. Christine, would you call, is there any discussion on the minutes? You can abstain or you can vote yes.
Okay, thanks.
You can do whatever you want, Mrs. Stoffer. Christine, would you call the roll?
Ms. Price?
Yes?
Ms. Shipley?
Here.
Ms. Stoffer?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Okay, next on our agenda is
Wasn't here last
swearing
year, so we
in
can't.
new members, or all members.
I asked you. So who were, was it three that were on it?
Just two of them were on it.
Okay. All right.
You need to say John.
That was my fault. I only meant to call the two.
Shouldn't have called.
I shouldn't have called yours. It should only be the two from last year.
All right, the mayor's come up with this really new trick where you just say, when we start, I'm going to say aye, and then you say your name.
Instead of butchering their
You say
names.
it for you. All right. Would you stand and raise your right hand? I
I, Sharon Price,
do hereby swear
do hereby swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws
that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Charter, ordinances, and resolutions of the City of Twinsburg,
the Charter, ordinances, and resolutions of the City of Twinsburg,
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties as a member of the Capital Improvement Board
discharge the duties as a member of the Capital Improvement Board
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my ability,
as I shall answer to God.
as I shall answer to God.
Would you please sign both copies and give me back one?
You gotta sign all of them.
I did already.
Did you sign them?
I did all of that before we started.
Just one? Both or just one?
No, I just need one.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Next on your agenda is to, among yourselves, elect a chairperson. So if somebody wants to make a nomination, or if somebody was interested.
I got nominated.
Yeah, I nominate Sharon, I don't know,
Price.
Sharon Price.
I second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Nope.
Would you call the roll on electing Sharon Price as the chairman person for the committee?
Yes. Mr. Blessed?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Shipley?
Yes.
Ms. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Okay, congratulations, you're now the
Thank
chairman.
you.
Guys, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
You guys should pull your mics down closer.
And you are now running the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussions we'll have? So,
So the next item is to review the 2023 capital requests.
He told me it works from all the way over here, and of course it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good evening, everyone. So this is my first capital improvement board with all of you.
So I want to give you a little bit of, thank you, of background of what my process has been so far with a new budget, a new city, new mayor, new finance director. So one of the things that I like to have in mind when starting a budget is like a budget mission. So I know it might sound a little cheesy, but what I came up with for this year is communication, collaboration, consistency. So one of the most important things is obviously communication, not only between the mayor, department heads, city council, but a board like this, you know, where residents have input into how the capital requests for the city are shaped. Collaboration, we've really asked department heads to come up with either new or unique ways to get things done, whether it's cost-cutting measures or, as you'll see tonight, there are some interesting methods to try and achieve what the city needs to get done, but in more creative ways. And then consistency. We want to keep a budget that's balanced, but we also want to stay in line with the amount of money that the general fund supports some of these capital requests. So that's really the main mission that I've had and that the mayor has supported so far through this budget process. So the first thing is the meeting timeline. Just go through that briefly. Tonight, you're going to hear from myself in place of Acting Chief Bosso. He's on a training out of state. And then Police Chief Mason. So they will talk about police and fire requests, which come out of the police and fire levy. The next meeting, I've tried to group like things alike. So Public Works, wastewater, and infrastructure from the city engineer will be next week's meeting. Following that will kind of be the main core of the capital improvement fund. So golf course, fitness center, IT requests. So that will be the bulk of the remainder of the requests. The following meeting will be voting on those requests, and then just any follow-up that the board may have from department directors if they need any type of follow-up or questions answered. And then the last meeting will be presentation of what you have approved or recommended to the Finance Committee. So just I'll try to briefly go through some of these slides for 2023 requests. I wanted to do this simply because there are some new members, and myself being new, I just want to give a plethora of what everyone can expect to see. So the police, well, hold on. Let me, either way, one of us is going to have to walk. There we go. It's supposed to be there's not a right button. You want to change stuff. Okay. Thank you. So for 2023, the police department and the fire department, again, both come out of the police and fire levy, which was a special levy that was put to the ballot. So this comes out of property tax that the city receives. So for 2023, the police department had requested $201,500, and the fire department had $479,000 in requests. We'll get into some of those in a little bit more detail later, especially the aerial truck. So I just wanted to put it out there of what was requested so we can compare it when these department heads come to what they've requested for this year. I'll just briefly touch on some of the other groups. Wastewater has had $1.6 million in requests. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a slide. Total 820. So 820 is the general capital improvement fund. That's where the majority of the capital requests for public works, building, the fitness center, parks and recreation, land use that are general community programs come out of this fund. So last year, there was $1.3 million that was given from the board, and that comes from a general fund transfer to that fund for those projects. Wastewater is its own enterprise fund. So they have $1.6 million of requests for this year. However, $1.3 million of that was appropriated this year. They received a no-interest loan from OWDA for the design of the treatment plant That was done right after I started, maybe like June. So that was not approved by capital improvement, but that was later approved by council this year. Golf course had requested this year one item, a team mower for $50,000. And the fitness center has had a couple of items, one of which is this roof and pool pack replacement, which just recently we've had some discussions at council about. So I will say, overall, for these requests, the majority of them have already been completed for this year, which is good. We do still have some straggling projects that are out there. But if you go to the next slide for me. I will say, anyone who's been at council knows that I tout the engineers' tenacity very much. Amy does a really good job of trying to find alternative methods and alternative grants and money for the city to achieve all of the infrastructure program projects that the city needs in a timely fashion. And as you'll see at the next meeting, that's the same for this year. But in 2023, $5 million was appropriated towards those infrastructure programs. Thanks, Chief. All right, so tonight we're specifically talking about the police and fire requests. So the police and fire levy is its own separate fund. However, there are limitations on it. It is limited by the amount of revenue collected, which is based on property tax. But it also is limited by the obligation that it is to help support the police and fire pensions. And the employer pension currently, or the employer portion for pension currently for police is 19.5% and 24% for fire. However, there is a House bill that is currently pending that would increase by the year, incrementally increase each year. So by the year 2027, police and fire would both be up to 26.5%. So that does take a toll on the amount of money that's available for capital requests out of there. So those are all things to contemplate in the future. That bill is in the very beginning stages. It's actually in the insurance committee of the House, so it hasn't even made it out of like committee level. But it is something that is probably on every city's radar because these are large expenses. So we take in roughly about $1.7 million in property tax for the police and fire fund. However, about $1 million of that goes to the pensions. So that really leaves limited resources for the remainder of that to be spent on capital expenditures. So for 2024, there are already $345,000 in pre-committed projects. So those are rollover projects that were either approved in 2022 or for 2023 that are either like ongoing lease payments that have just, rolled over. So those are part of that $700,000 that's left. So that leaves really about $480,000 for this year for both police and fire to, try and meet out what their capital expenditures are going to be.
See if anybody has any questions.
Oh, does anyone have any questions so far?
Everybody follow that?
If they don't use the full balance, does that carry forward?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there's $480,000 left, and between the two departments, they're requesting roughly $680,500 in capital improvements.
So they, if you go to the next slide, it does break down, let's see. They've requested roughly around $790,000. So the mayor and I have met with each department head so far, we wanted to come here with a better grasp of what was truly needed for this year. So when I sent the request out to all the department heads, it was pretty much, what is your wish list of things that you would like? Now, when we met with the mayor, he took a more serious approach, which was, what do you absolutely need? So we wanted to give you a list of everything that was requested from the police and fire department, and we will do this for every group that comes up here. And then I gave you a list of what we've pared it down to. So there are some items where, you know, the mayor took a hard stance and was, you know, just said like, do you really need that for next year? Or can, you know, is that a project that we can put off for next year? Or we've had some department heads who've said, you know what, I can pursue grant funding for that. So let me see where I can go with that. And then, you know, maybe we can come back to the table. I think it's always better to come with multiple approaches, and you might get a better result with that. So the first table, with the $1.5 million of requests, that was the initial request from police and fire of everything that they put on their wish list for this year, for lack of a better word. So the next slide shows the first cut. So we did reduce about 400,000 of that, and then the 345,000 are the pre-committed items, leaving around 790,000. So we will focus, if you can go to the next slide, Chief. We'll focus just on those $790,000 in items. Are there any questions up in? Okay. Can you go to the next slide for me? Yeah, I don't think that's working very well.
Maybe it's the battery.
There we go. So, Acting Chief Bosso is currently in a training out of state, so I will attempt to answer any questions for him as best as I understand this. So the two items that the fire department put as their absolute necessary items, the first one is a replacement of a medium-duty advanced life support ambulance. I couldn't tell you exactly what all of those things mean. However, the ambulance that they are trying to replace is from, hold on, I don't want to misquote. Let me find it.
I think I
Mayor,
saw
do we have
that
4 working ambulances currently?
It's,
Do we have 4 current working ambulances?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we've got 2 coming in, don't forget.
Okay.
oh, two coming-
This is less expensive than what we've paid for ambulances before, so this
Well-
looks smaller.
What he
It's a
did,
smaller,
right.
it's a smaller ambulance.
Because we used to pay $500,000 for an ambulance.
What his plan was is to buy the cab and chassis, and then to be able to take the current box and move it over, which I thought was pretty creative on his part.
Are they readily available, or is it a year wait for a chassis?
That part he didn't tell us.
That's been the challenge with some of this parts and rebuilds with the fire department. Just,
Takes
yeah,
Forever.
Yeah.
it seems like it takes a while. So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It takes 2 years for a truck, though, so.
So this was one of those creative items that the mayor and I were actually pretty impressed with, you know, Acting Chief Bosso, because he came in with, well, here's how much it would cost to purchase a full new ambulance of this size, $375,000. If we chose to replace the med box, which is in good condition, everything's working, everything's still up to date, but just buy a new chassis for it, it would be $275,000. So those are 2 of the options for that purchase. I don't foresee the box that they are going to remove that from is, I believe, a 2017. So I didn't think that that was too old for an ambulance, but I guess he said it already has close to 100,000 miles on it. So I thought that was an interesting, at least, avenue to pursue, that, you know, the box is still in good shape. You know, why don't we try to come up with something creative to, instead of just scrapping, you know, the whole thing?
For ambulances, is the active life miles versus hours? I know for the trucks, I think they talk about hours.
The hours they talk about trucks, the squads. I'm not 100% sure.
I know
Which way to
I'm
go
giving
with
you
that.
unfair questions, so.
Yeah.
I thought they went by mileage on them. We talked-
Miles,
we don't-
yeah.
Good
We've talked hour or miles on
On
police
ambulances,
cars
yeah.
and fire trucks for as long as I've been here.
Yep. I think for the ambulances, it's
And-
miles.
And about 100,000 seems to be the number that everybody says that the service, safety vehicles are about done.
Any questions that come up for him, she's writing down, and then we'll get the answers, and she'll shoot them out to you
Okay.
before the next.
I think I would just ask, like, the 100K is what would be coming in. What is the useful remaining useful life if we were to make that investment.
Right, of the box.
I guess my question too, so this is a medium, there's another ambulance we have, right? We have more than one.
Yeah, and we have 2 new ones coming in already. That should be in this fall.
So then this would make 4, or, well, if they change the box.
This is replacing
6.
the one that, like Bill said, it takes time for these to come in, so he's just planning for, the future of it, that it's gonna need to be replaced.
So we have 4 today. We're getting 2 more, we'll have 6. They want to get rid of one of them.
Not yet. We
So
have
we're
it in
gonna end up
escrow,
with 5.
but We haven't paid
And
it.
it's whether we buy a new, smaller one or put a cab on it. So since we're already gonna have 5, which
Until
is
we get
more
it.
than we
But we don't
currently
have a
use,
build-out time.
Yeah,
I'd like to see what this option is, but that's just my opinion.
right, seems like a lot of ambulances.
Yeah, I mean, do they feel like they need more? Is it?
So one of the notes that was included in his proposal is that they were trying to stretch out the lifespan of the ambulances to 10 years, but given the condition of the calls that they're going on, they're not going on as many fire calls, it's mostly paramedic calls. They're trying to reduce that number to between 5 and 7 years for ambulance replacement. So I think they're trying to shift over to that type of replacement program instead of stretching it out for longer. And then we've seen the issue with the 2 fire trucks being replaced at the same time. You don't want to be out of commission with more than one at a time.
So, oops, I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? Whoops. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. So they wanted to keep the ambulances 10 years, and now they'd like to shorten the length of that?
So they were stretching out the length of time to 10 years. So they're trying to reduce it. It says based on the EMS call volume increasing and the community's population growth, they're finding they're running the vehicles more often than they were. So they're trying to reduce the lifespan to 5 to 7 years for replacement.
So if they have more vehicles, then they're not going to be used as much, so then if their budget's going to be shrinking.
Part of the problem that I have seen since I've been here, and maybe Mr. Fury can collaborate this, but, when you have vehicles that need to be replaced at the same time, the build-out schedule that we're finding has been problematic. So, we have 2 large fire...
After we approve a fire truck, it takes another year for them to finish speccing it out and another year for it to be delivered. I mean, that's, and it takes 2 years to get a fire truck.
The fire truck that was approved last year or 2 years ago, we won't receive until 2025.
Right.
So the build-out is,
But we have had rebuilt things. Ms. Stoffer, I think you remember that we've had engines redone, we've had, where they have to be recertified as working fire trucks. So they've done that kind of stuff before. This is the first time. It makes sense, though. What's wrong is the engine and the chassis. The box is fine, just take the box off, throw it on the truck, let it run, because that's not gonna wear out. That's not the mechanical part, that's just the part they
Right.
hook the bed in and store the supplies.
This is something feasible, like this is something that's actually been done?
It's basically a pickup truck that they bolt this thing onto anyway,
Right.
so they're just gonna unbolt it and stick it on the other one.
Are we doing that? We're doing that, like in-house? Or
No, we won't
or
do
they will
that.
send it to someone who...
They'll have somebody
yeah.
do it for us.
I wouldn't be surprised if Fred
I
tried.
mean, Fred Whistle could do anything, but,
No.
hey. But no, that we would have somebody do that, because we'd have to, get it be certified.
Right.
So is the intention to have 6 ambulances in town, or 4 ambulances in town?
Often, there are, I would say it's to have 5 in town, because sometimes, even though we have 4, we only have 2, because
Okay.
they break and parts are hard to get sometimes. So, but we've had maintenance issues with safety vehicles, and, I mean, we do, so.
maintenance issues, run times, you have multiple calls at once. If you get 3 calls on the, south side of the city, you're not necessarily going to send a squad from Station 2 all the way down there.
with COVID, I don't have the chart in front of me, but I bet I can make the case that we have more calls now with ambulances because of COVID or through the last couple of years, because we become the ambulatory service for everybody, and emergency rooms, from what the fire chief was telling me, aren't taking people very quick, so they can park us someplace waiting for beds to be available. And it's not as efficient. We only go to Cleveland Clinic in Bedford because that's as far as we'll drive, I believe. So,
So is there anything you want us, we're looking at option 1 and 2, and you just want us to say which one we prefer, which we like, or we just
I don't think you have to do anything tonight,
do
Maureen.
anything? No, we're just talking
No,
about
we're
it.
just hearing and asking
What is
questions.
Steve,
Yeah.
what are his, I'm interested to see what his thought is.
Well,
Would he?
Christina's taking all these questions down that are
Mhm.
coming up. She'll,
Yeah.
Yep.
Steve will probably bounce in at another time and reschedule, but,
I can actually see if he can come to discuss it before the voting meeting, because that probably won't.
yeah, that's in 4 weeks, but again, if we had specific questions, we bring people back.
Seems like he thinks that'll work. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the other request that the fire department had, is a replacement response vehicle for Fire Station 2. That would include the upfit, the lights, that whole package, as well as the decals and the graphics. The current utility vehicle is a 2007 Dodge Ram. It really can't be used for emergency response due to its light nature. You get into a snow emergency, and a pickup truck is really just not the type of response vehicle that you want going. The replacement SUV will be transferred to the fire chief as a response vehicle. The current shift command, which is what you see, the Ford Expedition, will move to Station 2 as their chase and response vehicle. The current chief's vehicle, which was approved and purchased for this year in capital, will be reassigned as the other shift command vehicle. So this will be a smaller vehicle than the Expedition. They will most likely look at the state contract bid. That's where the Expedition was purchased from, off of state contract. Acting Chief Bosso has said that the Expedition is way too cumbersome to be a chief's vehicle. It really should be a response vehicle for one of the stations. It can carry all of the emergency equipment that they need as a lead vehicle to whatever emergency they need to go to. So that would be transferred to one of the other stations, and then the smaller vehicle would then become the chief's vehicle. So that's the request that they're asking for this year.
So this is a request for a new vehicle for the fire chief.
Correct. So the one that was purchased will be repurposed as the shift command vehicle
The
for
new
one of the
truck
stations.
to get rid of the 2007
Seven
truck,
truck.
and then they're gonna shuffle everything around.
I thought I remember last year he asked for a new vehicle, but I think that was turned down. Was it last
think
year?
we
Looks like
approved
this
it.
slide says that they did get one last
They
year,
did.
but
They
they're
got
gonna
one
give
last
it
They got
to
one.
Okay.
Someone
somebody
else
else.
is going to have 2 new ones.
So they're really, like Mr. Fury said, they're really going to shuffle vehicles around. The chief has said that that vehicle that was appropriated for the chief this year is too big for its purpose. It really should go as a shift command vehicle. They would like the shift command vehicle that they're currently using is from 2007, and it really is too light to haul what they need, and especially in the snow emergency, even if have a four-wheel drive on a pickup truck is not efficient. They slide. It's not the type of response vehicle that you want as your first-line vehicle.
And the new smaller one will also hold the equipment they need, because it will also be a first-line one, right?
So
Well,
the
it'll
new
be
one will
the
be for the
chief.
The
chief.
chief, yeah, he's taking.
Okay.
So they will repurpose the 2023 Expedition as the shift command vehicle at Station 2.
Okay, okay. And then,
So they put gear in that, and then, but the chief's vehicles just need to have, they
Just
just
be-
need to show up.
they're just for him to show up, so it doesn't,
Chief and assistant chief.
And the one in this picture is the one the chief will get for 60,000?
No, so that is the current shift command vehicle. So we have 2 of those now. So we're just shuffling That will be a shift command vehicle at Station 2, and then the vehicle requested for this year will be the new chief's vehicle.
And this one's new.
Correct.
From last year, right? That we.
It was approved last year, it was
So
purchased this
then what
year.
vehicle is he asking for 60,000? Is it a?
We don't know yet.
Or,
He just wants to get rid of the 2007 car, so they're looking for a $60,000 SUV.
So notoriously, police and fire vehicles are always on the state contract bid. I want to say it was Ford Expeditions last year. I know we've had some, as the chief will talk about, we were having some issues with Fords. So it really is generally the best value because the state puts out all the bidding, the city doesn't have to do it, and they generally get more favorable pricing because every city is purchasing from their contract. So we don't know what the manufacturer will be yet.
Do we still lease some of these vehicles and then buy
Yes.
them at the end? Is this an option for this one? to
I
lease
don't
them?
know.
We can, but usually with the type of mileage that these vehicles put on, leasing is not the best option because there's no value at the end.
Yeah. I think we have been though, and then buying them. Or at least the police vehicles, some of them.
3-year.
Yeah.
3-year, we own them for $1.
And then buy, yeah, that's what I've been, that's what we've
We
done.
also have a 10-year lease on a fire truck. We have other leases that
Right.
you'll see in capital improvements because we'll talk about the year. I think we're in the 4th year of the fire truck lease.
And those leases don't act like a true lease. It's almost like a lease to own. They're just allowing you to pay your payments over a span of 5 to 8 years instead of paying it all up front. Any questions on the fire department? Okay, we'll move to police.
So since Steve's not here, I'd ask that you vote tonight and just give me all the money. Okay.
Gotta ask.
Yeah. Can't hurt.
All right, so the first and most important item on the police request for this year is for the cruiser fleet replacement, which we just briefly touched on. So the fleet is 8 vehicles. We'd be replacing 7 cruisers and 1 supervisor truck. The state of Ohio bid is currently open for 2024. However, I just got a notice this afternoon that they are going to close it and reopen it for next year. So we won't even be able to purchase these vehicles until probably mid-2024. That's generally how the state works. They're on a different budget year cycle than us, so they start everything July 1. So there are 5 different model types that have been available on the state contract for law enforcement vehicles, and they have their own separate category. They bid out, and these dealerships, they deal in high volume, production of just law enforcement vehicles. So the Ford Interceptors are the Ford Explorers that we currently have, as well as the, is that a Ford F-150?
F-150, yes.
F-150, so
Correct.
those are outfitted, they're the upfitting, everything's included. They also have the Dodge Durangos, Chevy Tahoes, and in alternative to the F-150 pickup truck, Chevy has the Silverado. So I'll let the chief go into a little bit of, why we need to do the replacement, what the estimated cost is, and then kind of, I'll go back into what some of our options are.
Okay. Yeah, so typically, as Ms. Stauffer said, we've done a lease, which, as Christina pointed out, isn't a traditional lease. It's basically you pay it over 3 years. At the end, you pay them like $1 and you own the vehicle. So that's traditionally what we've done, and we've rolled over our fleet. Our frontline, our main fleet, frontline vehicles, as we call them, consists of 8 vehicles, the supervisors, and then 7 vehicles for the rest of patrol. So typically, every 3 years, we've been rolling them over. COVID was a little different. It set us back, an extra year. But typically, we like to do it every 3 years. That's what we're looking to do now. The current crop of vehicles are the 2020 Explorers, the hybrids that we've had. And again, as Christina mentioned, you ideally, we don't know what we're going to get, because right now, for example, Ford, we needed to replace our K-9 vehicle last year, and we had one on order. We had it on order for, I think, 7 or 8 months, and then Ford said, guess what, you're not getting the vehicle, we're not making them. So we had to scramble, and we found, I kid you not, it was one remaining Ford Explorer in the state of Ohio that Lieutenant Waltz found, and we ended up buying that from a dealer. They got us the state bid price, they matched the price. We got that vehicle, and we were able to upfit it as our K-9 vehicle. So they're getting increasingly hard to get. Ford and some of the other manufacturers, Dodge is really touch and go. They've really shut down the police fleet line of it. They're making all their money on the civilian side. And same with Ford. What we were just told 2 weeks ago is that Ford, if we were to, typically in the fall of this year, we would order our vehicles for next year. So we'd be ordering 2024 Explorers, to replace our fleet right now. What Ford told us 2 weeks ago was, guess what, we're not taking any orders. We're not making cars for the police line. What they are going to do in calendar year 24 is anybody that has a 23 vehicle that has not been fulfilled, that they're still waiting on, they're going to manufacture in 24. Those are the vehicles they are going to manufacture to try and catch up. They're not going to take any new orders for 24. They're going to open the ordering bank late 24 for 25. That's the latest that we've been told from Ford. How up-to-date the state bid is with, the manufacturers changing, week to week, I have no idea. They may come out with the prices, but we don't know, what's truly going to be available. So that being said, what we based our pricing on right now is the Chevy Tahoe. And if you may have noticed, you may not have, Solon, Aurora, Macedonia, Oakwood, you're seeing more and more of these Tahoes because Chevy's producing them. There's a few dealerships around us that have gotten state bid or will match the state bid price, and some of the dealerships are ordering hundreds of these just to have them on stock because they'll know they'll sell them, and that's what they're doing. So that's why you're seeing a lot more of the Chevys. So what we did when we were putting our numbers together, we based our numbers on the Chevy. The Chevy was a little bit more expensive. All said and done, upfitted, I think it was like maybe $1,000 per unit more. It really was not much. So the numbers we have are preparing for the more expensive vehicle in case that's the only thing that is an option for us. What else can I say about that? So our fleet, the 8 we have right now consists of the F-150 and the 7 Explorers. What we would be looking to do would be replace that with 8 SUVs. So something we do that's a little different is our frontline vehicles right now. Those will roll over to our backline. Our backline fleet is just as critical as our frontline fleet because we use it for the officers in the schools, the SROs. You'll see a police car in front of the school. That's one of our backline vehicles that's assigned to an SRO. When we have an officer out on a road job, that's a backline vehicle. When officers come in to go to court or if they're going to school for training, that's a backline vehicle. So our backline vehicles are critical. And right now, just to give you an idea, our backline fleet, we have some 2013s, some 2015s, and the rest are 2017 Explorers. So the concern there is as those vehicles age, we need to get those replaced, get those out of service. Somebody had posed a question about mileage and hours. As Mr. Fury pointed out, we always talk about mileage. Right now, a lot of our vehicles some of them, our lowest in our frontline fleet right now looks like it's 55,000. Our highest is at 85,000. So by the time we do get vehicles available, if there is an accurate timeline, these things could be pushing 100,000. More importantly, when the hours were brought up, hours are critical, although we don't usually calculate that in the replacement. They're critical because when you see a cruiser at an accident scene, that cruiser might be in the roadway in the hot sun idling for an hour or two, or on a road job, or on a detour, the car sitting there running. So those hours, what Ford has told us, every hour it idles is equivalent to 30 miles, 30 road miles. So that being said, Lieutenant Waltz has done some calculations, particularly with the backline vehicles. With the miles that are on the vehicle and the idle time translated to road miles, Some of them are, we have one vehicle that's pushing 786,000 miles theoretically, okay? You know, on the odometer, it's 132, but it's a backline vehicle, it does a lot of idling, it does a lot of road work. So that's why it's critical for us to replace the fleet. 3 years doesn't sound real long for a car, but the way we use them, yeah, you get about 100,000 miles on them, you get more with the idle time. And then again, we recycle those, we use them for the backline. And our backline fleet that we currently have is getting pretty aged. So the concern there is getting those out of rotation, you know, when we get the next fleet of vehicles. We have a couple plans. We're trying to get a little creative too with our vehicles. The pickup truck, for example, we have that. That's the sergeant's or supervisor truck. That truck is equipped very well. It's if you've never seen it, you guys come on by sometime. We'll show you the vehicles. We'll show you how they're equipped. It's got a setup that slides out of the bed, and they carry a lot of extra cones, shovels, barricades, ballistic shields. There's all kinds of things that are carried in that truck. And the cab can be used as it's got a cage in it so they can transport prisoners if they have to. So it's a functioning police car. The plan is to repurpose that into a vehicle, a multi-use vehicle that can be used, equipped pretty much the way it is, probably even load a little more equipment on it. We want to use it as a response vehicle for crime scenes for our detective bureau. Range equipment, we have our range days. Some of you have been out to our range, Portage County. These guys have to haul all kinds of equipment out there, and that's what we want to use the truck for. So we've got some good plans for the truck. The other cars, again, would replace some of the aged SRO vehicles, court vehicles, things like that, school vehicles. So that's what the ask is for, as far as for the 8 frontline vehicles. Consequently, we'll have a whole bunch that'll come out of service on our backline, and typically what we've done is if it's a decent shape, if the mechanics say they're decent and the mileage isn't too bad, it may roll over to Parks and Rec or Senior Center, things like that. The others do get auctioned, you know, so we do get something back from them. Those vehicles typically bring more than you would think because they're good commercial vehicles. Our service department's second to none as far as maintenance goes, and these places that buy them know they've been maintained well. Regular oil changes, brakes, things like that. So you do get something out of them at the end of their life cycle with the city. Yeah, so as Ms. Conway said, there's a variety of vehicles that will show up on the state bid. You don't know what you're going to get right now. Right now, it looks like Chevys might be one of the more popular vehicle you're going to see out there just because of what Ford notified us and because of what Dodge has done the last 2 years as far as scaling back their production. But we don't know. You know, we don't know. What else can I
I have a
answer?
question.
Yes.
Have you talked to any of these other departments that are running the Chevys, and what's their thought on those?
They like them because of the size. The officers like them because they're roomy. So the complaint on the Explorers, you know, and we have some tall men, some tall women. We've got some short men, some short women. The taller the officer, the previous generation of Explorers, there was constant complaints. It's got a weird design in the floor. Your foot placement's weird. It's uncomfortable. You know, after a long shift of patrol, the vehicles were uncomfortable. The current generation got a little roomier. They're a little bit better. The Tahoes are even bigger than that. You know, those departments like them. It's not a unibody. It's a body on frame, almost like a truck chassis. You know, they're durable, good off-road capability, and not that we're off-roading, but wintertime.
How about operational? How they holding up, you know, mechanically?
I would have to ask their service departments. I haven't heard of anything.
Okay.
You know, I will tell you this, that platform of vehicle in the civilian market, that train has been out almost 2 decades now. That's the same specific drivetrain that they use in the passenger vehicle that they use in the police, the commercial fleet. I know those things are pretty much bulletproof. As far as actual numbers, they'd have to get that from some of the other service departments, but we can look into it for you.
Okay.
And certainly we will. I mean, we've got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Would we be moving away from hybrid?
That was my question.
Well, we would love to keep the hybrid. We would love to keep the hybrid. That wasn't an option. Ford discontinued that, or not discontinued, but made that unavailable because it was originally a hybrid we had on order for a K9. Then that got canceled, and the only thing available was the gas 6-cylinder engine. They cut off the availability in ordering the hybrid pretty early on throughout the year. We just don't know the fate of the hybrid.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know it. Certainly, if we're able to stick with Ford and we're able to stick with hybrid, that would be ideal. That would be
Chevy
ideal.
doesn't make a hybrid
They
then?
do not.
Okay.
They do not. No, it's gas only.
I will say, when the chief told me that the Explorers were tight in the back with, all the upfitting, I didn't believe him, but I actually went to, West Yaga had a Unity Day this weekend, and they had all the police and fire and Yaga County SWAT out there, and my son got in the police car, and I was like, wow, that is really tiny. So I have to apologize to the chief for not believing him, but, seeing it up close in person, I was like, that is kind of, the upfitting is strange. It
It
cuts
does-
into
yeah.
part of the back seat, and
It does get
Yeah.
tight. I mean, we got a couple of admin vehicles last year that were Explorers, and you get in and you're like, wow, this thing's really roomy. But when you add a cage, that limits how far the seat can go back because you have to allow a certain amount of room for the back seat. You add a cage behind the back seat, you start adding equipment boxes, cones, weaponry, stop sticks, all the things you need to equip that car. It gets tight really quick. Not to mention up front,
The laptop.
it's really hard. Pardon me?
I said the laptop in the
Yes,
passenger seat.
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
That's a lousy seat.
Yeah, the laptop makes things tight. Again, some of the weapon systems up there, some of the control pad for the light bar. And now if you're going to put two officers in there because you're training someone, it really gets tight. So, when you asked how the guys would like the Tahoes, I can guarantee they'll like the room at least, so.
so the other option is, on state contract, is the Dodge Durango. Fred Bissell has not given that a high rate of approval. Any Dodge that the city has had, he has said it's notoriously been very difficult and costly to work on, and other cities who have had them have made, he's talked to other fleet managers, and they have problems with them continuously. So his recommendation is not leaning
Right.
towards the Dodge.
Well, yeah, you remember we had the Chrysler plant in town, so the city tried to stick purely with Chrysler for years. Even though we didn't get a break, we didn't get a discount, hometown discount, we stuck with Chryslers. And when I started, in fact, they had Intrepids. And Chrysler did not offer a police package, so this was a civilian passenger car that was bought, and our service department equipped it as a police car.
Oh, jeez.
That, up through the last batch of Chargers we've had, I'm not going to knock Dodge, but we have had a lot of problems. Fred Bissell will tell you, especially when we had the Chargers, we had a lot of problems, engine problems, drivetrain problems. So, I know Fred's a Ford guy, but, if we can't get them, we can't get them.
Yeah.
So,
So I had a real quick question. So you're going to replace 7 cruisers and 1 truck.
yes.
So the 5 different models are down here. You talked about the Chevy Tahoe, which is an SUV.
Yes.
So then what would the truck, the supervisor truck
We would
be?
not replace the supervisor truck. We'd replace it with an SUV. So it'd be 8 SUVs.
So they would all be Chevy Tahoe if
Chevy
that's what-
Tahoes, or if we can get the Explorers, the Explorer, whatever we can get at the time. Yes, they'd all be the same 8 vehicles, correct.
How many backline cars do you guys have?
Right now, we have, right now, we have 9. We have 9, possibly 10. The reason I say possibly 10, we have a vehicle, we call it the mystery vehicle. We don't know where we got it from. One of the, I'm not joking. One of the SROs is using it. It was an Explorer at one time. It was a police car at one time. I believe it was a car that was slated for auction, and for whatever reason, we didn't sell it. We kept it, and one of the SROs is using it. It's not a marked car. We do have some temporary markings on it. But to
It's on our insurance.
the point that several of you brought up, Mr. Fury brought up, as far as the vehicles and to the number of ambulances, I can tell you on the police side, for example, one of these Explorers sat for 8 months. We had to keep an Explorer out of service, not one of the front line, fortunately, one of the back lines, for 8 months because the exhaust system was recalled and was on national back order. So it literally sat at our service department for 8 months. So you get something like that happens to, whether it's a police car, a service truck, an ambulance, yeah, it can put you out for a number of time, or for a decent length of time.
Do you consider the unmarked detective cars backline?
Do we consider those?
Because usually usually have 2 of those?
We have 4 altogether, those. No,
Okay.
those are not considered backline.
Thank you.
Those are not considered backline.
Okay.
Sure. Any other questions on the frontline fleet?
So I did not include the pricing for this, so the estimate, the annual cost would be $202,000. So that's for the 8 vehicles, the upfitting with the lights, everything that needs to get done, the decals. So it comes roughly to around like $73,000 per vehicle with the vehicle upfitting.
With the upfitting.
entire package.
What did you say the total was?
It's $202,000 a year, so it's roughly
Thank you.
around like 6.
Okay, I missed the year part.
Two, I was like, wait, 70 times.
You were like, go ahead and buy them right now.
Oh, I was going to say, your math doesn't work for me. I'm
And we tried to figure high because a lot of the time,
I heard 200,
That's for all 8 cars.
Yeah.
it's 3-year lease?
3-year, correct, and then we own it at the end. And typically what we've seen is, believe it or not, we've seen about a 10% hike over the last couple model years. It's crazy, just where things have gone. So we try and repurpose as much equipment as we can.
And as ridiculous as the car market has been, it's not, these vehicles are not exempt from that. So, your
Right.
personal vehicles, the cost for new and used cars has skyrocketed over the last 2 years, and, this is no exception.
Yeah, and you'll find too, when parts are on back order, and again, I'm kind of on a tangent here, but when parts are on back order, a lot of time it's because it's the same part that the passenger vehicles share. So it may be a body panel on one of our Explorers that was in an accident, hit a deer or something like that, that's on back order, where we've had it. Sensors in the drivetrain are on back order because the passenger car market gets priority. That's the bread and butter, really. So sometimes these things sit just because of parts availability.
Any other questions on fleet replacement? Okay.
Next slide.
2 slides, because the next one had the nice little options, but.
Yeah, some pictures, and you've probably seen a variation of this vehicle,
Yeah.
passing through town or driving around, or, when you go out of the city.
Okay, so the next set of requests, it was just easier to include it all on one page. So there's a lease for 2 Detective Bureau vehicles. So the chief has briefly touched on this. We have 4 Detective Bureau vehicles. We rotate them in 2-year purchases. So this would be year 1 of 2. The annual cost is estimated a little under $12,000. And the lease for that will expire in 2024. That is, do we get that off of state bid, or is that because of the cost, we don't really need
Right.
to?
Correct. Yeah, it's not off state bid. What we've been fortunate the last few years, we've developed a relationship with a dealership that takes pretty good care of us. The nice thing is they've been giving us brand-new cars, so they're under warranty, and our detectives don't put the miles on them that the officers do on the frontline vehicles. So when the leases are up, they've been under warranty essentially the entire time. We don't run them out of warranty. So that's worked out well for us. We still maintain them, oil changes, things like that, but we're not on the hook for any major repairs by and large.
And this is where you rotate so that they're different,
Yes.
fresh.
Yep, different models, different
Anonymous.
colors, yes. Yep.
Okay, any questions on the Detective Bureau vehicles?
So that's 6,000 a vehicle, roughly?
Yes.
Yes.
We just signed the lease for the 2023 ones. It was about the same price. I think one's like 5,800 and one's 62,
Yeah, it's
they just figure
Yeah.
around 12,000.
Yeah. They try and keep them close, but sometimes one might be a little bit more just because it's optioned a little differently.
Sunroofs and
Yeah.
running board?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Heated and cooled seats,
Right, steering wheels. Anyway.
Is this over 10,000? Okay, so the intoximeter, which is, this is really a necessary item. At the end of 2023, the BAC meters will become obsolete per the Ohio Department of Health, so the intox meter is replacing that.
This is the breath machine.
Yeah.
Like, if you arrest somebody who's intoxicated.
Okay, I figured that, I saw that.
Did you see one of those, Maureen?
Never.
Oh, okay.
Try to avoid that. counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Ms. Conway said, the model we've had for a long time. It's been in service for a long time, as long as I can remember, and it's obsolete at the end of this year. So they're pretty much forcing our hand to replace it.
Which is also similar with the next item. So the portable radios, which obviously you see the chief and the officers carry everywhere, those are also going to be obsolete at the end of 2023. Motorola has said that they will no longer support the software, the firmware for it.
What frequency? 9?
It's all the 800 radios.
The 800 radios, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So Motorola has approached us with their leasing terms. They're very good terms. However, it's a 6-year contract. It's $45,000 a year. How many radios total?
We might be upwards of 50.
Okay.
I would have to get the exact count.
50? 50?
Yes, between patrol, the detective bureau, the SROs. You know, this is our lifeline, our radio, Ms. Conway speaking about. While the number seems high, you know, I was kind of surprised. I guess I'd never really realized what these things cost. I can tell you that, you know, Mr. Boss, you may know as well, these things are, especially the Motorola product has been indestructible for us. I've dropped this more times than I should probably be telling you guys. It's you know, it falls, like it's knocked off your belt. I'm not, you know, these things are phenomenal.
Is the new model going to be smaller?
Yeah, Sarah, I'm surprised they haven't, it's like the giant cell phone we.
Yeah, well, it's smaller than the one I started with.
Okay, I'd like
You know,
to
and
see
then we did have the model before this, going back a dozen or more years ago, was a little bit smaller. I don't know, to answer your
Okay.
question, I don't know. They've been great radios, and again, they're not going to be supported by Motorola, which means parts availability, reprogramming, and you know, adding channels, deleting channels, things like that, identifiers. You know, you hire new officers retire, you need to reprogram the radios, things like that. A lot of those support services won't be available, but the parts won't be available either.
And that is Motorola's the best one that's available to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's the first 3 meetings. I know. So we're not going to have a quorum next week.
Okay. And the last one, I'm sorry, were there any questions on the radios? Okay, so the last item that is requested is a women's restroom build-out for the police department, and I will let the chief get into it, because he knows the logistics of his office much better than I do at this point.
Yeah, this is a little different. It's not guns or cars or radios or anything, but it's something that's just as necessary. In my opinion, if you ask any of the women that work at the police department, they'll tell you that as well. So, our building was built in what, 75, something like that?
Something like that.
You know, mid-70s is when our
Yeah,
building was.
74, it's in the
Okay.
lobby.
Okay, yeah, it was built in 74. I'd like to say years before I was born, but that's a lie. Anyways, we've done a great job over the years of repurposing, if you will. Our service department's phenomenal. We've moved walls, doorways, added offices. You know, just we've made the best of what we've had. I can't tell you how many people I brought into the department. They're like, "Wow, this is a really, really nice department." And at a time where there's new departments popping up here and there, it's good to hear. Anyways, one thing that wasn't really well thought out was the amount of restrooms. So in the dispatch center, they have one restroom that doesn't get a lot of use, because let's face it, if you're working with a room full of people, you don't want to be, you know, right there. Outside of there, there's one restroom that's a men's room. It's one stall, one urinal. Around the corner from that is a women's room, which is one stall. Around the corner from there is a, I guess, unisex bathroom. That's just one toilet. So what happens a lot is we host training. We have, well, I mean, we're getting to the point where we have 4 female officers. a bunch of support staff. Dispatch frequently, like I said, uses the exterior restrooms, not the one in dispatch. So there's a good number of female employees in the police department, and they just have the one restroom. Add a class or two, you know, hosting some training, you've got people, it gets tight, you know, it gets a lot of use. So in talking with a couple different options, or in talking over a couple different options, we can add a restroom. It appears right now, we're still in the preliminary stages, it appears we could add a restroom off of our women's locker room. Several years ago, there was a enclosed garage added onto the police department. At the time when they added the garage, they added a men's and a women's locker room. There was enough room behind the women's locker room that I can encroach into the garage so that we could add a decent size women's restroom. We're looking at that initial figure, we're looking at dropping that. Hopefully, I have a meeting with service later this week, the service department foreman, to see what we can do with them. Because if they are able to do a lot of the foundational work, a lot of the sewer work.
Okay, so
you know,
you're going to have them,
That's the plan.
so the 80,000 is if you have somebody do it for you?
Yes,
Okay.
top to bottom. Top to bottom if we have, and granted, this is what the contractor told me. He didn't sit down and he said, I'm going to throw an estimate at you. Should cover you from top to bottom. I mentioned that we have a very capable service department, some of the things they've done in the past, and he said, absolutely, we'd work with them. You know, if they're able to come in and do some of the foundational work, maybe do some of the trenching, some of the sewer lines, things like that, it'll knock this down substantially. So, but this is the figure from top to bottom if we're to bring someone in.
So how many stalls would that add then? Just,
It would add, see, I have to do my conversion from men to women's. I believe he told me it would add because you have to be compliant, it would add a handicap accessible stall as well as another regular stall. So it would add 2 plus some sink area, you know, a little more area to that. So it'd give us 2 more full stalls in there.
Well, this could potentially be done by the service department, but after you meet with them,
You'll have a better
materials
idea.
aside, labor and everything could maybe be
They
done by
could
them.
do some of it.
They can do some, yeah. The problem is in the winter, so what happens is almost like everybody wants a piece of service in the winter because we all have projects. My department does, the fire department does, you know, City Hall. You know, a lot of the work you see around here has been done by them. Typically, they try and do it in the winter, and it all depends on what kind of a winter we have, because it's the overnight guys who are doing the work, and if they got to be out on the road plowing, then, you know, so they try not to stretch themselves too thin. And you've seen that in the last year. I've got 3 or 4 projects I'd love to get done. I'm happy if I can get one done. You know, just because everybody does. Everybody has things they need, and they still have a job to do, so.
Were there any other questions for the chief?
No.
All right, well, again, I invite any of you to come on down if you want to see any of the equipment yourselves or the cars. I think last year, you know, some people on the committee came down and, you know, you can actually get a feel for what we're talking about. So, okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any more?
No, that's the end of the slides. So I wanted to present to you just the full option of what we've requested for this year, but again, to remind everyone that because this is the police and fire levy and there is limited amount of money, if you choose when you go to vote to fully fund all of the requests, the ask is really going to be of the finance committee to put in the budget for 2024 a request from the general fund to do a roughly $381,000 transfer. So I just would like everyone to keep that in mind, that is, you know, part and parcel of the ask for, you know, a full commitment for all of the requests that they've asked. Other than that, does anyone else have any questions for the chief or for me to bring back to the fire chief? I've written down the ones that you have. I will get you an email response before next meeting, hopefully. If not, I can, you know, if you'd like him to come and present some of the additional information, he can do that at a follow-up meeting.
I had a question on the fire. It says that they're looking for a replacing the alerting system for 200,000. Is that just in the station alerting
Is that
the,
the sirens?
So the alerting system,
is that something for buildings or just for the firemen to know?
my first page.
If it's the sirens,
That's
I
on
think we
here.
have 9, 2 in the township, and
9 of
7.
them, yeah.
7 in the city.
Oh, the
And
tornado.
we haven't had a lot of, we've had challenges with them not working consistently. And getting parts because they're old
That is
and there were issues.
So this is actually a separate, this is not for the tornado systems.
Okay.
This is what Chief Basso requested. The alerting system is what the department uses to notify stations and personnel of incoming calls for response. The system is triggered by the dispatch center simultaneously, along with notifications to mobile data terminals and other electronic devices. Our existing alerting system is well past its useful life, and we've attempted to piecemeal repairs over the past 2 years since the original vendor is now out of business. He said that it is still in working condition.
So is it a software package or it sounds like something that you utilize to push data out.
It sounds like the hardware portion of it is what they're having trouble replacing, because the company that they purchased it from no longer exists.
Comtech's out of
But-
business.
Okay.
He did say that in comparison to the other two requests, that he could probably hold off for another year on this one.
Okay.
So that first list is just what was everything. And what we covered is what is the
What we-
imminent.
What we've pared it down to is like the
Correct.
imminent request for next year.
So they're no longer requesting that master list, basically.
Okay,
Right.
He said it's working, but.
okay.
Chief, did you hear anything more about changing the outdoor sirens? Or, the fire department talks about it more than the police department, but,
Yeah, the weather warning?
yeah. Okay.
No, probably no more than you.
No, I talked to him about that because when it was getting so hard to get replacement parts and get those other three fixed, I asked the question, what's it cost to replace them? And when he told me, it's like, yeah, they were like, it was,
It was like 30 grand a spot, wasn't it?
I'm sorry?
Was it 30 grand per
I
siren?
believe that's what it was. It was right around
Rough,
there.
but it was like-
That-
so we're
telling you
talking
that.
about
So we kind of
Seven,
put it
you said?
aside, and we've got all of them running except
Seven, there's
2,
two
I think,
township.
right now. One of them's not even in the city, it's in the township.
That one's
So-
out, one of the township ones wasn't working, I was told.
Right.
Do we pay for the township ones?
No, they pay for
They
that.
pay for it. Yeah.
So in that,
So
the
I
other
was
night, the alarms I couldn't hear, but the phone worked.
Right. Yeah, and not to interrupt, but yeah, that was a big part of the conversation is that.
Well, we
nowadays-
thought to going to all cellular instead of those,
Right.
because a lot of people are. But, from the Maui thing, those cell towers all burned and that nobody got cell service there. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I think that these out here, and, you gotta remember that those aren't designed to hear inside your home. That's not what they're for. They're for us to hear when we're outside, to warn you that you need to go inside and find out what's going on. So we've had some concerns from people that said, well, we never heard the sirens,
Did they get the phone? Were they on did they mention?
if they're signed up for it. And that's the other thing, they've got to sign up
Yep.
for it.
Plus, you can hide your alerts, like you can block them at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had several friends say, well, I have all my notifications blocked between 11 and 6. So they didn't get that Amber Alert sound,
Right.
so.
So we heard the alarm go off, was it Thursday night, Friday morning?
On your phone?
No, the siren.
Oh,
I'm
the
close
siren.
enough
Yeah,
to
well,
the
my
post
phone
wrong
woke
one that
me
I
up
could hear.
Oh, We could too.
And then I heard the
Yeah, I'm
sirens.
a deep sleeper, so it was the phone that got.
So my wife woke up, and then she woke me up, and I said, it's funny that you heard that noise, because we were talking about getting rid of those, just using cell phones and everything. She goes, don't you dare get rid of that thing.
Yeah, I'm not an advocate of that anymore.
I'm not
I was
either.
more, leaning towards, I don't want to put $300,000 into these sirens, because an Amber Alert, jumps off my phone all the time, and we did that, but,
That was pretty-
now, I've been told.
I always think of the older people too that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
don't have their phones on or whatever. I might be
Don't
one of
have
those
phones.
soon, but.
Hearing aids, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I have one quick question. So are you going to talk to service on this women's bathroom, and will that price be adjusted, or is that something you're looking for us to say, yes, go ahead with? Or, I mean, will we get a new number on that, or is that basically you're just, if they have a chance to?
Yeah, no, it's, I have a meeting scheduled later this week with
Okay, and so we'll.
service director to see what they would be capable of doing.
Okay, okay,
Hopefully, we can adjust that number.
yeah,
All right.
a little bit. I don't know. They did a nice job on these maps.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm
absolutely.
hoping. I like our people. They get it done.
Yeah, the
It's
only,
tough for them, though.
yeah, the only real difference, well, not really, but, you know, that was a remodel. We're talking about adding
An
something
addition,
that didn't
yeah.
exist. You know, water lines in, sewer lines out, electrical, HVAC, the whole.
Yeah. That's why it's so high.
Are there any other questions?
Questions, yeah?
No? Any miscellaneous?
Nope.
All right.
Oh, you know what, I do have to say something. I got a text from Sharon. He's out for the next 3 weeks as well. So that means next week you guys don't have a quorum.
I'll be here
'Cause-
next week.
Oh, you will?
I'll be here next week, yeah.
So we've got you three, as long as you three can be here, we could have the meeting.
I can be here
You're
all
not
the
gonna be here,
weeks,
right,
as
next
far as I
week?
know.
I'm here next week.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
When did you tell me you're not gonna be here?
I said as far as I know, I can be at every meeting
Oh.
unless something happens.
Never mind.
How about you, John, are you?
Yeah, pending any tornadoes, I'll be
Yeah.
here.
No, I'll miss the.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Then you're good.
yeah.
So he'll be missing next week again.
Okay.
He's out of town.
Gotcha. Well then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Do we have to excuse a member or not in this?
We didn't appoint him yet.
Oh.
He's not
Yeah,
sworn
he's
in.
not even sworn
Okay.
in.
All right, I guess you
Sure.
don't have to excuse
We'll be
me.
meeting Thursday.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Seconded? Okay. Do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second. I thought you said I'll second.
Oh, I
it.
did
Oh,
too.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Can we take the roll?
I'm writing the time.
Mr. Blessed?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Shipley?
Yes.
Ms. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
All right,
Good
so
job,
the
guys.
meeting was closed at 10 till,
Sherry.
right?
Yeah.
10 till